You've done some things, but you feel like in the second half of life, you're looking for some clarity. You have something stirring in you. There's a new project, there's a new business, there's a new ministry. How do I figure out what the next steps are? We've all been there. We're all looking for clarity. We're all looking for next steps. And sometimes it feels like a fog. Sometimes it feels like you're overwhelmed. Well, today I want to give you a framework and I want to test out some ideas. And these are fairly new ideas that I've been kind of working with. And I'm calling it the clarity compass. Now think back when you were a kid, and if you're a kid like me in Gen X, you love movies like Goonies. You love movies like Indiana Jones. And what I love about those movies was the quest, right? The search, the adventure, the map, right? There's a map and we have to follow the map to find the pirate ship and find the gold and find, the relic, whatever it is. But the thing is with the map, it's really to get you started to get to your destination. It doesn't have all the details. It doesn't have every step of the way, but it's a way to give you clarity. Now I'm talking about the clarity compass because a compass tells you which way to go, north, south, east, west. Doesn't tell you everything to do, but I want to give you this framework so that in the next 30 days or less, if you have a project, a business idea, a ministry idea, that you could actually be launching that in the next 30 days following this simple framework. So let's try out some of these ideas and see if this is helpful for you as you think about what you're building, what you're launching, what you're starting in the near future. So first, on the clarity compass, we have to think about what is north. Now, if we go north is all about passion and joy. Now, this is one of the things that we don't pay attention to enough. Where does your passion and your joy go? In other words, what lights you up? Like when you think about certain things, you think about business ideas, you think about solving problems, you think about creative projects, you think about hobbies and things that you really enjoy. Where does kind of your passion and your joy go? Like you could see yourself doing this all the time. Like this gives you energy. It gives you life. Now, I know we hear a lot of advice, just follow your passion, follow your joys, follow what makes you happy. And passions can start a business and passions can start your next creative project. My passion for writing that I had as a little kid started me out writing nonfiction books and then later fiction books. I've written 23 books because I had a passion for it. I love doing it. I don't think about it. It's just part of who I am. Now, that doesn't mean you need to start a business around that. You're going to need clarity around that. But don't minimize your passion and your joys because these are the things that make you feel alive. These are the things that give you energy. Now, those passions and those joys often are the clue on the compass. They're the hint that's guiding you in a particular way. They're the hint that's nudging you, saying, why do I feel this? Why do I want this? Why do I desire this? So don't minimize that at all. That passion, that joy, that deep-seated happiness that kind of comes from when I think about making this or starting this or building this, I get really happy. I could see myself doing this, that I feel energy around it. Now, I want to make clear that starting a business, starting a ministry, starting a creative project, whatever it is, even when there's passion and joy around, doesn't mean it's always going to be passion and joy. We know that, right? Like, you know that. You've been around the block, right? You've started some stuff. You failed at some stuff. Our passion and our joy aren't going to always sustain us. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. There's going to be difficulties. There's going to be things you don't want to do. It's not all fun and games. We get it. But there's something about when you have this calling and this purpose and this direction, when there's passion and joy behind it, it will keep you going in the hard days. It will keep you going when things aren't going well, when the money is running out, when people are difficult, right? When it's not going as fast as you want. The passion and the joy will help you. So when you think about the clarity compass and getting clarity around your next idea, your next project, that thing that's kind of stirring in you, the north part is thinking about passion and joy. What lights you up? Maybe you need to write that down. Maybe you need to put that in your journal. Maybe you need to get out a Google Doc and write down all the things that just light you up, that you'd say there's passion around this. There's joy around this. I love doing this. I could do this all day long. Think about that. Second on the compass is south. Now, south is all about the needs and the problems. These are the pain points of others that stir something in you, your compassion. In other words, when you think about starting a business or you think about starting a nonprofit, there has to be an element of there's a problem that I'm trying to solve. So my wife and I and our kids moved to a city we didn't grow up in, didn't have any contacts with, didn't have any connection with, to start a nonprofit. And there was a need for a new church. There was a need in this particular part of the city for a new church. We saw that as a problem. a solution that we could meet. And so as we were praying about that, as we were thinking about that, and as we were talking with other people, they realized, oh man, there hasn't been a church started here in 30 years. There was a great need in the city because people had moved out of the city, and so did the churches. So we saw a need and a problem that we could solve, but we also felt this great compassion for what would it look like for a community of people that could connect together and connect to God and grow together and serve together and find joy in their lives together, right? So there was this compassion, this need, but there was also this compassion and joy that came with it. So when you think about this part of the compass, you have to think about the problem. And what's the problem that you're trying to solve? What's the solution that you're trying to offer? What's the thing that really tugs on your heart? You say, I just see people really struggle with this. People really struggle with time management. And I want to create an app that's going to help them with their productivity, right? Maybe people are wandering aimlessly and you're like, I have this app, this idea that I really want to help people kind of get more organized in their lives. I heard a woman just the other day, she's starting this business that is to help people organize literally their rooms, their homes, because there's something about when our lives are chaotic and even our physical space is chaotic, it kind of affects our entire lives and our families and our mental, emotional, spiritual realities. And she said, I want to meet a need in that because I know what it's like to have a cluttered life and I want to help people get organized. It could be as simple as that. Maybe it's a nonprofit where you're like, I just see kids in my city. They're having a difficult time reading. And so I want to train up people that could read to kids and help them not get behind and go into the schools and read with the kids. So, but you sense you're seeing there's a true problem and there's a solution that I can meet with this business, with this creative project. Now, when you think of writing, if you're looking to start a creative project, you got to have a problem in mind. If you want to write a good book, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? Years ago, I wrote a book on meditating on scripture and prayer. And I realized that a lot of Christians in particular weren't really getting much out of their Bible reading. And I thought, one thing that's really helped me is meditating on scripture, taking small sections of scripture and sitting with it and praying over it and letting it kind of soak in us. It was just a different way of reading scripture. It was a problem that people had. It's like they were reading way too much and they didn't know where to begin. And yet I said, hey, what if we could provide a practice that took small chunks of scripture and helps you really dig deep into one section of scripture and pray over those things? There was a problem and I found a solution. So if you're writing a book, what is the main problem? What's the solution you're trying to answer? The clarity compass. Hey, in 30 days or less, I want to help you start your next project. Because I've seen the overwhelm of so many people I interact with every day. I got these ideas. And then you talk to them and they go, well, yeah, I've been thinking about this novel for 10 years. Okay, well, have you started writing it? No. But I have this business idea. I have this nonprofit idea. Okay, have you started a business plan? Have you talked to people about this? Have you put a website up? No, I haven't done any of those things. Okay, so there's something about clarity. There's something about pulling out the compass and saying, okay, what is next? What's the problem or the solution that I'm trying to solve? That's what South is. It's about needs and problems. We have to talk about East because East is about skills and experience. It's really about the talents and the wisdom and the skills that you've built over a lifetime. So when you think about first your passions, your joys, and you think about the problems you could solve, but you also have to think about what are the experiences I've had? What do I bring to this? How can I solve these problems? How can I find solutions? Well, here's the thing. If you're midlifers, I know we have a lot of midlifers on here and you've been around the block for a few minutes, you got a lot of skills, a lot of experiences, things that you bring to the table. So what are the skills? This is where you start writing down, okay, what are my skills? Well, I'm good at accounting. I'm good at writing. I'm good at speaking. I'm good at communicating. I'm good at spreadsheets. I'm good at solving problems. I've started businesses. I know what it takes to raise money. I've started nonprofits. I know what it takes to raise lots of money for nonprofits in that world. I know what it is to cast a vision. Done a lot of that. I've coached people. I've been a teacher. I've taught people. I'm good with coding, making apps. I'm good with technology. But whatever those things are, write those things down. And there's no wrong answers here, but it's really just taking an inventory of your skills, your experiences, your talents, your gifts, putting them down on paper. So now that you look at your passions, you look at what brings you joy, you look at this problem that you're trying to solve and you say, okay, what skills and experiences and people and networks do I have that can actually solve these problems? problems. Because here's the thing, if you're wondering what you're supposed to be doing, if you don't have any of these skills, any of these experiences, it's going to be really difficult to solve these problems. So this is where passion and joy aren't enough. You can't just be passionate about something. You actually have to have the skills and the abilities to actually pull it off. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be an expert, but those skills can be underdeveloped. Maybe it's a new skill that's being developed. Maybe, hey, I've never started a business, but I have some skills that are being developed from my experiences. Hey, I've never written a book. I mean, there's a point where all of us have never written a book. We don't know how to do it. But, I've written a few things. Maybe I've blogged. I've written, in my journal, I've written poetry, shorter things. We all have to start somewhere. I get that. But here's why this is important. Because if there's problems to solve and you go, hey, I have skills to solve those problems and I have joy around solving these problems, this may be where God is calling you. This may be where the compass is calling you. It's aligning you. You see how that works? It's all these pieces of the compass coming together. It's my passions, it's the problems, it's my skills and experiences. Now they're all starting to come together that I actually can do something about this. I could see myself actually doing that. But you need all of these together to really find clarity and to find purpose. That it can't just be one. Now, I know when I say all this, some of us may get frustrated. I know maybe you're even thinking that right now. You're just like, man, there's this idea. I'm not very good at it. I don't have a lot of experience to it, but I just really feel like this is what I want to step into. And I totally get that. And that doesn't mean you can't do that. I just want to make that really, really clear. But there is something about the skills and the experiences and the ups and the downs that you've gone through, how you're able to offer those to the world that can actually bring you great joy. Because it could be even just a small thing. It's like, hey, I went through a divorce. I know what that's like. I want to walk with these couples through difficult marriages. You don't have to be an expert in that, right? You don't have to be a marriage counselor in that necessarily, but you've gone through that experience. Now, if you've never gone through that experience and you're walking with someone who's going through a divorce, it may be a little bit difficult. Now, if you're a writer and you've never written anything, it may be difficult to write a full-length novel. So maybe you start with a short story. Maybe you start with a poem. Maybe you start blogging or writing essays or articles to kind of grow that muscle and realize, oh, I'm actually really good at this. And people seem to be telling me I'm really good at this. So this is about, East is about skills and about experience, about talents, about gifts. What are those? What am I good at? And how can I use these to solve these problems? And it's funny because when there's a problem and you have these skills and you have these talents and gifts, and then it seems like joy is always right behind it, isn't it? Like you're in your sweet spot. Like you know this is what you're built for, right? Well, we also need to talk about West. Now, West is about values and it's about faith. These are kind of the guardrails that keep you aligned with God's purposes and God's kingdom. So you have to decide who you are. And this is very personal. Your values aren't my values. Your faith is not my faith. But they're the guardrails that keep you grounded. In other words, if you're going to start a new business or a new project in the next 30 days, you have to have values that ground you, things that keep your integrity intact, your faith intact. There's certain lines that you're not going to cross, but there's certain values that drive your business. In other words, hey, we want to be a business that is service first, or we want to be a servant leadership. In other words, we want the posture of our business to be about how do we serve people? How do we help people? How do we consider others better than ourselves? That's maybe a value for you. Or maybe it's the value is purpose over profit. In other words, there's a greater purpose that this business is going to provide, a bigger impact that it's going to provide. And it's not always going to be about money. In other words, we're not going to make choices just based on money. And how do we grow the business and make it bigger and bigger and bigger? Maybe that's not a value that you have. There's a movement of solo entrepreneurs that say, I don't want a big business. I want a small business. I want a business that gives me my life back, where I can spend time with my family and my friends and my community. I don't want it to overwhelm me. I don't want it to, I'm not trying to build this thing to $10 million, because once you build it to that size, there's a lot of other complexity that comes into it. So maybe that's a value for you. Maybe it's just a value of, the work-life balance of, I want to build something that I still have time for family, friends, vacations. I don't want to start this so I don't have a life. Like that's maybe not a value for you. Maybe the value is your faith. You want your faith to be front and center. So whatever you're building, whatever you're making, you want to make sure that your faith kind of drives all of that. Maybe the content you make, the business you're building, the ways you talk, it's faith driven, right? I want to keep God at the center of everything that I do. Now, some of those values are going to be shared publicly. Some are just going to be kept to yourself, but it's important to write those things down, because I think what happens is we just try to build something and it's all about the building. It's about the business and the websites and the marketing and all those things, but we don't ever think about where do my values come into this? Like even in my marketing, am I doing that from a place of integrity, or am I pretending to be someone I'm not? Because a lot of marketing these days, again, it's the influencer. It's I have to look a certain way. I mean, this is why I'm shooting these videos really raw. I just want you to see like what is possible. Like if you're just put on the camera and just go for it. Don't try to be someone you're not. This is just who I am. It's all my flaws and all my stutters and all my, you know, pimples on my nose, all the stuff. Like I want that to be authentic. That's a value that I have. Now other people, it's like, hey, I can't handle that. I have to look a certain way and feel like that's what I need to do. Okay, that's fine. But you have to think about that as you're building what you're building. I've just seen so many people burn out, because building their business or starting that publishing business or starting that nonprofit, that was just their whole world. And there's nothing else. And so it becomes their all in all. And so when it becomes your all in all and there's nothing else, then guess what? Your family gets hit by that, your relationships, your faith, because this is the only thing that matters. And so you need to think through your values and how your faith is going to keep you aligned with God's purposes as you figure out clarity. As you work through this clarity compass, you want to see where your life aligns with these things. That you're the person that has to run the business. Like your integrity matters, your values matter. It's going to shape everything that you do. This isn't just a secondary question. Now, I'm going to make some other videos in the future of how you can actually do this in 30 days or less. And I like 30 days because if you're like me, you overthink everything, right? You have an idea, you have a dream, you're looking at the next half of your life going, I got some big ideas, but sometimes you just get stuck in your head, you get overwhelmed, you don't know where to start. But I'm going to do some more videos around the clarity compass so that you can begin to see that dream come alive. Because 30 days is enough time to reflect and to go through a process and think through all the things of your skills and your passions and problems and solutions and values. But it's also not so much that you don't do anything, because the point is we want to get to action. That's my goal for you, is want to get you to action, which I think is totally possible. So clarity compass, think about your passions, your joy, what lights you up. Think about your skills, your experience. What do you bring to the table? What are you good at? Think about the problems and the solutions that you're trying to solve. Where's compassion in your heart? I'm tired of seeing people fall on their face. I'm tired of people not having opportunities. I'm tired of people not getting their creative work out in the world. Whatever it is, what is that? And then what are your values coming to that? What are the guardrails that you need to put in place so you can build with integrity? So I hope this helped you. Hey, if you're following along, I'm new to the YouTubes, subscribed, whatever the kids say, follow, do all the things, make a comment. If you have questions, put them in the comments. I love to interact with you. Go in peace.